my policy tends to be don't trust Wall Street giants because they become that powerful on Wall Street because they, are pretty cutthroat and criminal because that's how you rise to the top of that particular sphere. Just look at how Larry Fink has been behaving over the past like 2-ish years. He was known as a big ESG guy, right? And then he openly abandoned the ESG terminology and straight up said that climate finance, green finance, all of that stuff he's involved in is about profits, not about wokeness or saving the planet or whatever. And since then has also 180'd his stance on Bitcoin and has essentially changed a lot of his talking points, which I think is very notable.
BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, first announced its incursion into Bitcoin in June 2023, when it applied to the US Securities and Exchange Commission to offer a spot Bitcoin exchange-traded fund. Before BlackRock's application, several crypto-native firms had tried for years without success to get the agency's approval to offer crypto-based spot ETFs. But with BlackRock's completely unexpected interest in the cryptocurrency industry, the chances of approval from the SEC shot up skywards. The green light was finally given on January 10th, 2024, and it's been mostly all good for Bitcoin and crypto since then. The leading crypto asset is currently trading north of $50,000, its highest price since December 2021. The overall crypto market cap has also climbed to $1.96 trillion, up from less than $1 trillion last March. Despite these positives, some Bitcoin advocates remain very wary of BlackRock, especially because of the stark difference between the world it represents and why Bitcoin was created. According to popular investigative journalist and writer Whitney Webb, every crypto investor and other advocates of a free financial system must be aware of BlackRock and Larry Fink's true intentions. Whitney believes BlackRock is working on creating a new financial system that would lead to the fractionalization of not just existing assets and commodities, but the natural world, reducing most living things to Wall Street financial products under the complete control of a single entity. In essence, BlackRock wants to make everything into an ETF that would be completely under the control of Fink and the rest of the one-percenters. Whitney's latest journalistic masterpiece, co-written with Mark Goodwin, the editor-in-chief at the Bitcoin magazine, is titled Tokenized, Incorporated, BlackRock's Plan to Own the Fractionalized World. In the article, Mark and Whitney warn that BlackRock's sudden incursion into Bitcoin and other crypto assets is just the first phase of co-opting an industry created as the direct antithesis of the world Fink and BlackRock represent. Whitney and Mark recently appeared on the What Bitcoin Did podcast with Peter McCormack, where they break down the sinister plans and how this is much bigger than we can ever imagine. As we bring you clips from this thought-provoking discussion, please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. Thanks, and enjoy the video.
The first time I really wrote meaningfully about Larry Fink was probably a few years ago in relations to the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, where Larry Fink is a principal. It's like a UN sponsored organization that was co-founded by Mark Carney, former head of the Bank of England and later Bank of Canada, former Goldman Sachs. And also Mike Bloomberg is a big figure there, the former mayor of New York and a well-known billionaire who, started off at Salomon Brothers. So these are essentially bankers developing what amounts to a major component of UN-sponsored policy directly related to their climate change policies. And basically what GFANZ proposes is creating a new financial governance system, seizing what they call the new Bretton Woods moment, basically, recreating the global financial system and also reimagining the multilateral development banks, like the World Bank, the IMF, et cetera, which came out of actual Bretton Woods, right? So they want to move all of that into a new paradigm. Larry Fink's been particularly vocal about that. And what GFANZ proposes specifically is merging the members of GFANZ with the multilateral development banks as a way to basically use the same debt slavery model that the MDBs have been criticized for using, but instead of using it to further U.S. empire or the dollar and things of that nature, it's instead the proposal is to use it to create better enabling environments in countries for the green investments of these large financial institutions and asset managers. So it's basically like perpetuating the same model of the MDBs, but having basically Wall Street run it under the guise that it's a planetary necessity. And that we can't get to net zero without this, which frankly, if you look into the explanations for that, there's no way that's the case. But that's, how I first started writing about Larry Fink was because of his involvement in this relatively open plan to create a new financial system, which, among other things, doesn't just rest on the MDBs, but also on the development of global carbon markets, which comes up in this particular piece in a pretty meaningful way. Well, Larry Fink is someone who's obviously a member of the elite, and he's also a person who, throughout his entire career, has been pretty obsessed with risk management. So I think, whatever this new financial system is, it's that he is, part of this group that's proposing this, ultimately is about trying to enable BlackRock to continue its massive expansion to own, essentially everything with, as little risk to them as possible, which obviously a lot of the stuff that Fink is pushing for is part of this broader a system that the world's being pushed into under the guise of sustainable development that includes things like digital IDs and carbon markets and all of that, setting something up where it's will be very difficult to challenge BlackRock's financial prominence and dominance, really, and anything that Fink and others would view as a risk to, their current trajectory, I guess. They don't really have to worry about people or movements like that as they enter into and sort of impose upon us these new systems, which includes, some of these forms of digital control, like the CBDC and their private sector equivalents, for example, programmable surveillable money, and, tied into the digital ID thing. All of this, as is noted in the article, is meant to interface with global carbon markets and the multilateral development banks that Fink has been targeting in particular through GFANs and also BlackRock itself has been pretty focused on them. They're seeking to, the World Bank is developing climate wallet functionality and a lot of this other infrastructure on which global carbon markets would rely, and are also sort of attempting to become the main data storage for the digital ID system as well. So a lot of big moves are being made through these institutions for part of this new global financial governance system, as GFANs calls it.
About 3 years ago, Fink and BlackRock were very pro-ESG, and by extension, anti-Bitcoin. In fact, in 2021, BlackRock supported about 50% of global shareholder ESG initiatives. But by 2022, that number dropped to 22%, then 7% last year, and now the asset manager has said it is completely done with ESG. According to Whitney, that's not the true picture. It is what they want us to believe. The pullback from ESG, an initiative Fink spearheaded for years, was reportedly politically motivated because of the various anti-ESG measures that House Republicans have announced. In 2022, for instance, 19 GOP attorneys general asked the Securities and Exchange Commission to investigate BlackRock's push into ESG policies, stating that it hurt state pensions as well as the oil and gas markets. So, did Fink, like the good old boy he is, just quietly abandon well-laid plans that, if executed properly, would help the global elites achieve their plans of having us own nothing and rent everything, including the clothes on our backs? We think not. Whitney warns that all of the plans by members of the Global Financial Alliance for Net Zero, GFANs, to reimagine and recreate the global financial governance system are still in place. She adds that the co-opting of Bitcoin is one of the first steps in achieving the grand goal of creating a new financial system, which GFAN's co-chair Mark Carney believes should involve new multipolar currencies, such as CBDCs and global carbon markets. During her interview with Peter, Whitney further warns about ongoing efforts to rebrand BlackRock, the World Economic Forum, and other related organizations so they would seem harmless and completely dedicated to serving the masses. Here are more clips from the discussion.
Larry Fink, among other things, is on the board of trustees of the World Economic Forum. And I think the World Economic Forum is misunderstood by a lot of people, and people use certain terms to refer to what they are and what they do. But ultimately, what that group is about advancing the public-private partnership model. And of course, there's two sides to that, much like there is in the prevailing left-right paradigm of most countries' politics. And, for a long time, they've leaned sort of on the public side and used talking points that are meant to appeal to the political left, and have gotten a lot of pushback as a result. And so if you notice, people like Fink, but other people as well, have moved their rhetoric away from those seeking to appeal to the political left in the public side of the public-private partnership, leaning into the private aspect of the public-private partnership and having more right-leaning talking points. But ultimately, all are trying to lead you to the same exact system of digital ID, programmable, surveillable money, and global carbon markets. And I think, the carbon market in particular, it's sort of hard to extricate that from the climate change, situation. But I think it looks like, people like Fink and some of the people in that particular space are going to attempt to market it as something that can make people very wealthy or allow them to get quick access to capital by tokenizing their land holdings and like fractionalizing their private property, using different things that haven't been able to be financialized before, and then bringing that on chain and using that as collateral, receiving loans that way and all of that. There's a lot of ambitious plans in that particular space. And aside from that, there's been this push led by the Rockefeller Foundation and some other groups through this whole push for natural asset corporations, where they basically openly talk about the idea to expand the amount of assets in the existing financial system by like 5 or 6 fold by incorporating what they refer to as natural assets. So this is sort of like the financializing of the natural world and turning, allowing people to sell ecosystem services and all of that. And, this is part of the broader effort to usher in a global carbon market. So anyway, I think it's interesting that there's a lot of this shift going on. I think it's a big part of why someone like Javier Milei was given the main stage at WEF and then openly praised by the WEF that he was the WEF elites that he was supposedly scolding in that speech. They very much embraced, Milei's vision, and we're like, yeah, we should have the private sector lead the public-private partnerships and all of that. But ultimately, the public and the private, as represented within the WEF, agree about the plan. Maybe there's, how it's implemented or how it's sold to people. There's differences there, but ultimately they agree about where we're going in terms of like digital ID, a global ledger and all of this stuff, programmable, surveillable money, whether it's private sector issued or central bank issued, ultimately the end results are somewhat the same, but there's an effort to sort of change the sales pitch. I just want to sort of underscore the idea that there's a historical precedent, specifically in the US, for when they attempt to pitch a particular policy or create a particular entity. If it gets pushed back as being openly part of the government, they privatize it and then no one complains. People, think because of the rhetoric that, this is, everything's being handed back to the free market. But these companies, Palantir being an example, that was set up with state involvement, CIA involvement. Right. So it's not really the free market. It's cronyism. It's crony capitalism. It's cartelism. And so with someone like Milei being like, yeah, I'm going to hand stuff off to the private sector, it's not like it's going to the Argentine private sector. It's going to foreign members of a global banking cartel that includes some of the biggest institutions on Wall Street that have a verifiable documented history of corruption.
Whitney believes we are seeing the rebranding of not just Fink and BlackRock, but the entire WEF global elite class. It's definitely not a coincidence that the theme for the organization's 54th annual Davos meeting was rebuilding trust. The good news is that they know the people are onto them, and that we have the power to stop their plans. The bad news is that this rebranding will make it easier for us to lower our guards until it is too late. This is probably why Whitney and Mark concluded their piece with a dire warning for all. It reads, "You will allow BlackRock to build the panopticon of tokenized Earth TM with Americans' retirement money under the dialectic pretext of owning the liberals, unknowingly connecting all aspects of ownership to centralized databases, walled identity gardens, and fractionalized reserve assets transmitted and issued on the private blockchains of Wall Street banks. The new face of economic freedom is your face, alongside select credentials sent to a privately owned database, one ledger to rule them all. Your existence reduced to a JSON string, and your worldly possessions regulated and demarcated by a QSIP. What are your thoughts on Whitney's interview? Please share your comments and observations in the comments section below. Also, ensure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.